I would go through and ask the kids a couple questions. I would say that we're learning about the Obijew Nation. Oh, it didn't work. Oh, there it goes. Has anyone been to Madeline Island? Thumbs up. Can you tell me one thing you did there?
We cliff jumped.
You did what?
We cliff jumped.
Oh, you cliff jumped? Thumbs up if you've ever eaten wild rice. Leanne, did you like it?
Yeah, it wasn't plain wild rice. It was like mixed in with hamburger and some other stuff, but it was good.
Does anyone else not like it? Let's try it. This would be the vocabulary, and I would sit and go through it. I made this a little longer than I realized. So we're gonna skip that part and go to the traditions. So it has 7 clans. The first clan is the cranes, the loons, the bears, the deer, the martine, the bird, and the fish. Can anyone tell me what they all have in common? They're all animals that are local to around here. Each tribe had a special goal, or each clan had a special goal. The loons and the cranes were considered the chieftains and had to be the leaders for all 7. The fish were the problem solvers and thinkers. The bears were the guardians and the healers. The martines were the warriors or the fighters who saved the communities. The deer are the poetry and storytellers. And the birds are the spiritual leaders. Has anyone ever been to a spiritual reading or just a spiritual act for Native Americans? Thumbs up. Ooh, a few. Native Americans, even today, really focus on the seasons. They don't focus on all 4, they only focus on 3. So the first one would be spring, when the fish are most vigilant and spawning, which means that they were trying to have new little fish. So they'd spear fish, and at this time, it's a great time to have maple syrup. Pretty sure almost everyone's had maple syrup. During the summer, the men and women had different goals. The women would plant in the garden and make all of the food and gather all of the berries, while the men would go out and hunt and fish. Late summer, almost what we consider fall, is when everybody, not just men, not just women, had to come together and do the wild rice. So they'd all have to go in the wetlands where wild rice is grown, and the women would make special baskets to put all the wild rice in. The men would be in their birch canoes, picking it up with hooks. Does anyone know, besides what Leanne said, what wild rice was made into? Yes, oftentimes it's soup. They made a lot of stews, and they made pancakes with it, because it was easy to mash up into a powder, like flour. During the winter, women made clothes for their families. The men went out and hunted. What do you think the men hunted? Deer. Deer. They also would hunt or trap beavers and otters and anything furry, so that the wives, when they bring them home, they could use that fur to make clothing. They would also ice fish, so they'd have to spear the ice to get muskie, trout, and lake pike. So this slide says history. Early days, giving up lands and dealing with non-Indians. We're gonna focus on the early days. Early days, the Ojibwe welcomed the French in the 1960s. They enjoyed their company. They enjoyed all the new stuff they were bringing. They didn't fight with them like we oftentimes hear. Madeline Island, as we learned before, was a major trading post and is still considered today the biggest spiritual center around here for the Ojibwe Nation. However, there's these things called black coats, and they tried to go into all of these tribal communities and take the children to boarding schools and force them to convert to Christianity or to become Catholic. Now, it's not just like black coats, that's their name, it's just what they wore. That's why they have that name. There was a treaty of peace and friendship in 1825 that was supposed to be established in Wisconsin to gather all the nations for the U.S., and the U.S. decided to steal the land by telling them they were borrowing the land to log timber. So then we would go through giving lands, dealing with non-Indians. We'd also go through every 6 tribes, each one stating what it is. And we'd be on today. So I'm just gonna give you a little bit of background. In the early 1900s, it's actually not that far away. How many years is that? Does anyone remember? It's only 121 years ago. That could have been when your grandparents were alive, or your great-grandparents. All 6 bands in the early 1900s opened their own casinos. Thumbs up if you've ever heard of a casino. In 2002, the Bad River Band, which they would have already learned about, and in 2003, opened a new convention center, a new gas station, a new grocery store, and a new wellness center to help students and anyone in need through their community. In Mole Lake, in 2004, they built all brand new hotels, one which costed $23 million to support how many people were coming to their casino. This casino is closely located to Green Bay. So when people would go to games, they'd go to the casino, and it would cause overflow. They were actually, in 2004, Mole Lake was the first one to open a Boys and Girls Club as well. In 2011, in 2010, Red Cliff Band created a 3-year program for infants and toddlers to learn how to speak language. They even provided language classes for parents. You did not have to be part of the reservation to do these classes at the elementary school. In Duluth, they do this at 2 of their schools. You can choose to go learn these languages. The La Corte de Laurels and Lac du Bombay built clinics and wellness centers, improved and expanded all types of schooling from elementary school to college level. And their main goal as of today, currently, is to improve the Chippewa Valley water flowage, which actually caused their tribe to have to move because it went under 25 feet of water because the U.S. allowed this to happen. They stole 100 acres of land to build this dam, which is the flowage of Chippewa Lake. And then I would give you guys a Venn diagram, and you guys would go through and say, what about today, what about history, and what's the same currently.